What does it mean to be scared? Or better yet, what is horror? Well, I'd read you the definition I found off Wikipedia, but it's so far away on my second screen, I can't. However, horror, to me, is that visceral feeling of your heart thumping, pulse racing, and hands shaking as you round the corner in a game. Unsure if it's just your imagination or if you really heard something shuffling down the halls. It's something that you can't exactly put into words, but when you're scared, you sure can feel it. Many games can have horror as their main focus, where the intention is to scare or unease the player. However, some generally don't. Yet they still have a part that makes your hair stand on end despite this. Whether it be an unintentional Easter egg some shithead developers left in their game, or just purely unintentional, where it's not meant to be scary, yet due to certain fears or phobias, it may elevate that part of the game and make it so much worse than intended. I think horror in games is unique to the medium, so I'd like to shed some light on it. From full horror games to unique, hard to spot Easter eggs, this is horror in games. As a child, I loved the Ghostbusters. I still do, actually. The first movie is one of my favorites. The humor, the wacky ghost designs, they really inspired me as a kid. I still remember wishing to have their proton packs and having vivid daydreams of joining the Ghostbusters. Safe to say, it meant a lot to me. So when I saw a copy of Ghostbusters the video game on the Xbox 360 at a local GameStop, I wanted nothing else but to acquire this game for myself. Luckily, I scrounged up enough money to buy it eventually. I loved it. It was everything I wanted from a game about the Ghostbusters and more. The game put you into my dream role, a new member of the Ghostbusters, having to replay and getting to visit a lot of the areas from the movie. One of the levels in which my playthrough always stopped at, though, was the library. Turning the radio channel, the Ghostbusters catch a warning about a ghostly sighting at the New York City Public Library. They turn their attention over there, with Egon believing it must be the Grey Lady from the movie. They arrive to the two statues bursting and the ghosts running into the library, with the Ghostbusters giving chase to them. Eventually, after a while, you and Ray enter the juvenile curriculum. The sounds of ghostly children are heard as soon as you enter, crying out for their mother, alongside the fingerprints of these children on the walls throughout the room. Screams you can hear alongside more wailing. They painted a potentially grim fate for these kids. There's a room you have to break into by shooting the chair blocking the door and entering. There's a teddy bear on the other side of the room you get to interact with, which causes the door to violently shut on them. This got me good when I was a kid, and I think overall, the room just has this haunting atmosphere to it. Even now, such an area strikes me every time I replay this game. The rest of the game, however, isn't intentionally scary. There may be some creepy moments, such as the Spider Witch, but nothing that stands out to me, nor is it often done to the point I consider this game a horror game. It's just a part of an otherwise silly game that affected me. Horror can truly take so many different shapes and sizes, as it's not just a, putting this scary monster here will get everyone. Sometimes it's more than that, or less. Hell, sometimes the scariest thing is your imagination. I remember getting Grounded, a game developed by Obsidian Entertainment, when it first released on my Xbox One, due to my friends pestering me to get it. The game's genre was a survival game, where you and up to 3 additional players try to survive in a backyard, where you've been shrunk to around the size of an aphid. It was one of those games when it first launched that didn't have much of a direction, as it was very much still in early access and constantly being worked on. The first objective in that game, however, was to reach the giant tree, which was on the other side of the map from where you were. And what the game did have, unfortunately for me, was spiders. I suffer from arachnophobia, which means anything with spiders in it causes me to have a panic attack. To those who think, oh, it's not that bad, I don't think you understand. The act of seeing a spider or even just hearing one in a game is enough to send me into a panic. Turning on the arachnophobia mode doesn't help either, as just thinking about it being a spider, even if now it's just a white blob, is enough of a struggle for me. So the act of me getting to that treehouse was very much a struggle, as I had to hide and avoid all the spiders in that area. It took me a long time to get there, not to mention how I had to get back. It was thrilling, in all of the worst ways. Another lovely example was Dark Souls 2, the internet's favorite punching bag. I don't blame them, but I think the game has some merits. The environment is very pretty, as well as some of the boss fights being fun to fight against. Some. Except one. And if you've paid attention and have played Dark Souls 2, you will very much know what I'm talking about. As I want to give a big warm shout out and special fuck you to Brightstone Cove and the Duke's Dear Freyja. This place is the absolute worst, and it continues to get worse the closer you are to the boss of the zone. Now, let me explain what I just adore so much about this area. As you're aware, I do not like spiders. Specifically ones that have the body shape of orb weavers. For whatever reason, those ones tend to freak me out the most. And wouldn't it be quite unfortunate if the ones in that area have a similar frame? Now, these are attached to walls, and some of them, if I remember correctly, don't do anything, which almost makes it worse to me. It's the looming threat of terror that never comes. So you're just waiting for something to happen, and that feeling of a release never comes. It's the worst. Having this phobia makes games like these so much harder to play, as it sometimes gets so bad that I have to close my eyes or take my headphones off while playing. This is an example of a phobia I have. However, there's another game that I think fits this category perfectly for another phobia. Subnautica. And the fear of deep, large bodies of water. It's referred to often as thalassophobia. Now, I don't suffer from this one, but I've heard a large number of reports from people who do, and I can understand how this impacts their ability to enjoy a game. Looking down and not seeing an end, not to even mention the possibilities of what could be lying down deep below, just waiting to emerge. It's even gotten me a few times, and I love the ocean. The fears are not unfounded either. Multiple Leviathan-class enemies present themselves throughout the game, discouraging you from going any further. The game forces you many times to delve into depths in which you struggle to see around you, having to rely on the glow of your flashlight. This game can be scary, and it would definitely make it 1,000 times worse if you suffer from a phobia like thalassophobia. Subnautica, in my opinion, has such a unique relationship to horror, as it would be hard to classify this game as a horror game. And while it does elicit fear in people, it isn't often as intentional as other games, having standout horror moments from the noises you hear in the depths, letting your imagination run wild on what could be lurking. This is how games can instill fear in the player, even if it isn't intentional. How different types of horror can appear in games, yet it doesn't attempt to intentionally scare the player, unlike...
Isaac, it's me. Oh, I wish I could talk to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about everything. I just wish I could talk to someone. It's all falling apart here. I can't believe what's happening. Strange. Such a little thing.
Dead Space, one of my favorite survival horror games of all time. Taking place primarily within the USG Ishimura. After a full communications blackout, a small squad is sent to fix whatever's wrong with the ship and establish communications. One of those people is Isaac Clarke, an engineer. As they land and attempt to establish a systems report, they're quickly overrun by the necromorphs, reanimated corpses with only one directive: to absorb all life forms aboard the ship into one big biomass. Isaac Clarke's backstory ties into the gameplay, as he can take simple mining tools and turn them into weapons of mass destruction, capable of severing limbs, heads, and anything else to survive this infestation aboard the Ishimura. In Dead Space, it feels as if at any moment you can be taken by surprise. Even a simple vent turns into a potential attack point, as the enemies can leap from it, starting a new fight. Once you take notice of that, now everywhere is a potential fight, as there are ceiling fans that enemies can drop from, taking the simple action of walking from one side of the room to the other into a suspenseful experience. Tense as you walk across the room, careful to not draw the attention of any unwanted visitors. It really nails that feeling of horror. The tense emotions that are elevated by the potential presence of a threat. Maybe you heard something scuttling and jumping into the vents. Is it still nearby? Could it be a distraction for something else? To add further to this, the game introduces a pursuer-type enemy that presents an active threat throughout parts of this game, the Hunter. He cannot be killed, as the only solution is to cut his limbs off and stasis him, hoping that you can escape faster than he can regenerate and chase after you. Despite him being used only in a few parts of the game, his presence really elevated the tension, because I didn't know he was only in a few parts. I was just afraid he'd jump out at any area throughout the ship and slice my brain open. I don't think I would classify this as my favorite horror game though, as I've played.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now. In our special place, waiting for you.
Silent Hill 2. The town of Silent Hill is a manifestation of the protagonist, James Sunderland, and his grief. The death of his wife affects even the environment, as he goes through twisted, almost nightmarish versions of the places he's been to before, to uncover her passing. The buildings are now decrepit, rust covering the buildings, warping the order of everything. It truly feels like the most realistic manifestation of hell to me. The sound design echoes this cruel environment too. Unfamiliar sound echoes in the building, the fear injected by being unable to place those noises to anything remotely from this world elevates the horror, as well as the monstrous designs of the enemies, representing the trauma of James and his actions. As, spoilers, he kills his wife. The first enemy you fight, being the lying figure, is a metaphor for the memories of his sick wife on her deathbed. This gives the game a more visceral feeling, with the enemies having much more meaning to them than just obstacles in James's way. Not to mention their horrific appearance. I also think the addition of the radio adds more to the game than I initially thought. I remember when I first acquired it, reading that it plays a noise when hostiles were nearby, thinking that would lessen the horror, making it so it doesn't matter what happens, I knew where they would be. But I think it adds a surprising element to the game, that slight panic where you can hear and know that enemies were in the room with you, but you can't see them. Referring back to the lying figure, the symbolism ties into the sounds they make as well, with wet, choking sounds coming out from it, further making the environment unsettling to cross. I still remember when I first played this game, and in the apartments, I saw Pyramid Head on the other side of the bars. His presence alone commanded attention, and the way he stood there, watching me, was intimidating. More so knowing he's the representation of James's guilt and wants to punish himself for the atrocities he committed. An elegant way to tie the act of being hunted by something into the character's emotions. I think, personally, that if you haven't played these games yet, you should. They're great games that intentionally set up the environment in such a way as to scare the player or make them uneasy, scared of what they will see next. Now, I think there's so many videos that discuss the creepiest Easter eggs in gaming that I think it'd be best to just talk about my personal favorites in a sort of like... In Call of Duty, Finest Hour, there's an underground passageway that you have to blow up twice, leading into a giant circular room that has all sort of freaky stuff, from a man-sized baby to a giant rat. Pictures of babies are also strewn up across the wall as well, making the atmosphere even more unsettling. This room is easily missable, which makes it such a unique Easter egg to find, and I remember watching so many top 10 wackiest Easter eggs to piss your jorts to that had this one. Additionally, an Easter egg I remember experiencing as a child was in Ocarina of Time. In Lake Hylia, there was a lab you can enter as an adult, the Lakeside Lab, and if you can dive far enough to reach the bottom, you'll be rewarded with a piece of heart. But there's something else down there with you. Behind a cage is a shark that's staring at you. I remember having nightmares about this shark, and curious as to if there's any way to get him out. Unfortunately, from what I can find and what people have data mined from the game, there is no way to release him, so he's just been stuck down there. As far as we know. In Red Dead Redemption 2, there is a strung up body you can find underneath a bridge. It's very early on you can find it, as it's in Valentine, one of the starting areas in the game. I remember seeing the disheveled corpse, with most of its limbs being gone and peeled off. It was gnarly, especially for a game that isn't a horror game. It also ties into a quest in which you locate the killer behind this. I want to bring up an incredibly infamous Easter egg, the US Sonic CD sound test. Now, I have no idea why they decided to pick this song with this visual. It's the most demented shit I've ever come across. The text reads, "Fun is infinite. Sega Enterprises." That poor kid who discovered this for the first time must have had nightmares for weeks. It's really cool seeing Easter eggs that can scare the player or otherwise make the world just a bit more tense. I think it's especially unique when it comes from games that aren't horror games, but instead cozy and relaxing farming sim type games. Like how in Stardew, you can visit this hut to delete your children. Yes, you heard that right. Which turns them into doves and they fly away. Later on, eerie things will appear in your game. From answering a telephone where the person on the other end claims, "You have forsaken us," to getting a doll from a weird TV station, as it exclaims, "You've brought this upon yourself. Now I'm free. Hee hee hee." Additionally, when you return back to the hut used to delete these kids, 2 floating dolls show up that attack you on sight. None of these games are outright horror games, but they all have some creepy Easter egg in it. It will always amaze me the unique ways each of these games can scare the player, whether it be because of my own fears, the fears of others, or a hidden secret that can change the way you view the game entirely. All of these are linked by how they can unease the player, make them vulnerable, even if the rest of the game isn't meant to instill that fear. And for the games that do, they are able to by making the environments tense, alluding to a potential threat that could be lurking around anywhere, such as the case for Dead Space or Silent Hill. All of these games are so unique and special to me in their own way, even if they have fucking evil ass spiders in it. But the way they can instill emotion into the player. Thanks for watching. I'm curious as to your opinion on some scary video game moments. Feel free to leave a comment detailing it. I'd love to read it. Thank you so much for getting to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. And if you liked it, subscribe. I'll see you next time. FNAF at Freddy's is pretty scary, I think.